All right. Hey, it says we're live. So welcome everybody. It's Tuesday night. It's 9 o'clock, or at least it's 9 o'clock in the central time zone, which really is the only time zone that matters because we're right in the center of everything. So welcome everybody. It is time for the Get Off My Lawn podcast. And we are very thankful that hold on, I got this thing going on where I'm running my mouth. There. Hey, you'd think I'd be professional after a couple of years of doing this, but nope. All right, here we go. We are back. Okay, so real quick here, you might have noticed we've got a little bit smaller panel tonight just because I didn't want a huge panel, everybody talking. We've got a new face on here. So we're going to jump into some stuff real quick here and just let everybody introduce themselves that we have in here. But we're going to save our special guest for last. So first off, we're just going to introduce these other two guys. If you've seen this podcast before, you've seen these guys in here probably coming. Both of these guys now coming to us from the capital city, Lincoln, Nebraska. So we'll start off with Defense Dad. What's up going down tonight, Defense Dad?
Oh, no, thanks for the invite. First off, glad to be here. Spent the day out shooting with the kiddo and having fun, and now we're gonna have some more fun tonight.
Excellent, good deal. Alrighty, and then this other fella needs no introduction. He's one of the reasons why I'm even on YouTube right now. So Travis P11, what's going on, Travis?
Hey, not a whole lot, man. It's just been a little warm out there lately and waiting for things to cool down. But yeah, appreciate the invite tonight. It's going to be a good show, man. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
All right. And then over in the chat section, I have got to figure out a way to get my Facebook stuff up here better. I was going to work on that this week and then I didn't get it done. But I know out on the YouTube side, we've got Sandhills Sweetheart was the first one out there. She is, of course, where she is always on these podcasts, sitting just off camera to my left, your right, in the producer's chair. She's holding it down in the chat. You guys know how this works. She does the typing. I do the talking because I've got a big mouth and she doesn't want to talk on these. So she doesn't even want a microphone, let alone have a microphone over there. She just yells at me and tells me it's 9:01. It's time to click the button to go live. So that may or may not have happened tonight. Also out there on the YouTube side, we've got Iron Horseman, we've got Mystic Guns, we've got, who else do I see? Justin Gibbons in the house, Mike, Defense Dad is out there and in here, Fluffy 10mm Jeep Guy, Nighthawk Medic in the house, G23, 2 Live Moo, and I know there will be others joining us as well. If you're out there, drop us a comment. I can see everybody's comments, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. So if you're watching this on either side, just drop a comment. Let us know you're here so that I can say hi to you and we can kind of go from there. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to tag one of us on YouTube. I don't know yet if you can tag us on the Facebook side, but to tag one of the panelists or Sandhills Sweetheart, you just put the @ symbol in front of the name and then write the name exactly as it is shown with capitalization, spacing, all that stuff. So that way it highlights it over on our side. We can actually see that you made that comment. Otherwise, if you want to drop an email, you can do that. It's up there on the screen right now, sandhillslive@gmail.com. So you can send those emails as well, and I will get those. And if you have any questions, those are going to be the best ways to get in touch with us. So let's get that back off of the screen so everybody can see these guys a little bit better. All righty. Now, having said all of that, I see Charlie out there, as in Riding Shotgun with Charlie is in the house. And we've got Bella making noise over there too, because we can't have a live podcast without the cat coming in. And then we've also got Yehuda Remer out there in the chat as well. You might know him as the Pew Pew Jew, and he is our special guest. So here's what we're going to do. I don't think that I could give you the kind of introduction that you would deserve, Yehuda. So what I'm going to do is just let you introduce yourself. If there's anybody out there in the chat who does not know who you are or what you do, and they said, who is this Pew Pew Jew guy, what would you tell them? And go.
I'm an Orthodox Jew who is a constitutionalist, defender of liberty, and educator in the Second Amendment to Jews across the country, as well as an author of firearms-related children books.
Wow, that is a mouthful. I definitely could not have done that as well as you did. Very, very happy to have you here. Thankful that you were willing to carve out a little bit of time from your evening to come join us. I know that this isn't always the easiest time slot for everybody to join up with us and do the live interviews. So we sure appreciate you taking some time. I'm assuming that this is kind of the time that you're putting kids to bed and whatnot on a normal night. So since we're taking you away from your family, I just wanted you to know how much we appreciate it.
No, are you kidding me? I appreciate you guys. I don't have to do bedtime. It's awesome.
Oh, well, I mean, here's the other thing. You will have a standing invite. Any night that you want to join us, if you want, I'll just put you on my distribution list for emails. You can ignore them or log in anytime you want to join. If you want on that list, you just let me know.
I definitely will.
You can say at any point, honey, I've got to go. John's doing his thing, and good night, kids.
Exactly.
Okay, hopefully she's not within earshot and she didn't hear me say that. All right. All right. So you have got kind of a unique story compared to, I think, a lot of the people who typically watch or listen to this podcast or follow my Facebook page, that kind of stuff. And so can you first off just kind of tell us a little bit about your background? I know you live in Texas now, but you're not a native Texan. And if I remember right, you are a native of California, right?
Yes, as much as it pains me to say it, I'm a born and bred Valley boy from Los Angeles. Yeah, it's I tell my wife now I can't wait till I hit 61. That way I can say I've been living in Texas longer than California.
Nice.
Got a while to go, but yeah, I grew up in Los Angeles to a very apolitical family. Politics were never discussed. Firearms were definitely not discussed. We were allowed to own that. We were allowed to have Nerf guns, and we definitely had fun with that. But like I said, because of apolitical family, I didn't grow up learning about the Constitution or the Second Amendment. I didn't learn anything really until I was much, much older. And yeah, just my path to Second Amendment advocate and children's book author, just a super interesting journey that, man planned, God laughs, and I wasn't planning to be where I am today. And it was, it's a lot of fun.
Very cool. Now, I want to ask you this, and I guess it could be, it's not necessarily an either or answer. It could be both. But you grew up in a house where guns weren't really even talked about or considered at all. Now, is that more of an influence of being a Jewish family or being a California family, or was it a combination of the two?
I'm going to go with more being a Jewish family. I know Jews tend to have a pretty bad reputation of being, rabidly anti-gun, and in a lot of cases that is very true and accurate. However, in my case, like I said, I came from an apolitical family. Up until I was 22, basically, I thought all Jews were Democrats. I mean,
wow.
That was the way I grew up. Not that my parents told me all Jews were Democrats, but it was apolitical, and you always hear, oh, Jews are, overwhelmingly Democratic or Democrats. So I was like, yeah, I'm a Democrat. And then all of a sudden, I'm like 18, 19 or something. I don't even remember exactly. But all of a sudden, here I am. And I'm like, oh, wait, I can vote now. Who am I voting for? And I don't even remember who I voted for my first time around. But the truth of the matter is, 18, I don't think I even voted. Like, that's how little I cared.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first time I voted, I was 24, 22, something like that. So I think that the guns being around the house was more of that Jewish mentality that you hear of, I mean, if you want me to get into it, I can definitely get into why I believe Jews tend to be more anti-gun than not. But yeah, I always thought, like that's why I believe my family was just anti-gun, because Jews are anti-gun.
Sure. And you know what? I mean, I don't see any reason not to get into it, because now you've got my interest peaked as well. And I'm coming from a place where, I grew up in north central Nebraska, right? I mean, my house was about 3 miles from the South Dakota border in Nebraska, and right in the dead center between Wyoming and Iowa. So I mean, if you can picture the state of Nebraska, you can just about envision right where I came from. We didn't have, to my knowledge, anybody around who was Jewish. I mean, I can't even tell you the closest synagogue in the area, probably Lincoln or Omaha, to be honest.
Right.
Where the people are in Nebraska. I mean, that's over half our population. So I don't know anything about Judaism. So I'm going to learn a few things tonight that I didn't know. And of course, I don't know what I don't know. But at the same time, I mean, I'm really curious to know why any group of people would be anti-gun, because I myself can't wrap my head around it. I grew up in a place where, I mean, going out and shooting targets, hunting, everything, that's just what we did. Everybody that I knew of had a pickup and a rifle or a shotgun going to high school. Drove a pickup with a gun in the gun rack. Nobody stole anybody else's gun out of their pickup. I mean, that's the kind of community I grew up in. And so I don't know why anybody wouldn't. I mean, personally, or just a group of people, if we want to generalize. So I'll shut up and let you tell us. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, no, but definitely feel free to stop me if you have any questions. But, what I'm about to say is my own theory. There is no actual proven fact to this, but this is just something through my research and through, talking to my brothers and sisters in the Jewish world, something I've picked up over the years, especially since my grandparents were all Holocaust survivors. At the end of the day, the reason why I believe Jews tend to be anti-gun is that, to start off, we have to go back to back in history. So we'll start call 1800s, where you have the pogroms and Cossacks, and you have something called the shtetl mentality. Now, shtetl is basically, you have a large city, and there's a small pocket of the city that all the Jews were, right? So think of Chinatown, but for Jews, in a big European city. And they were very close-knit, very small. They kept to themselves. Now, all of a sudden, you have pogroms and you have, Cossacks coming in. If, let's say, they would come and kill somebody, or if the Jews defended themselves and killed one of the Cossacks, or whatever you want to call the people doing the pogroms, well, what would happen is that they would now inflict tenfold on the Jews, right? They would retaliate tenfold. So the Jews, over time, were just like, let's keep our head down. Whatever happens, happens. And it's better to cower and pray to God that, nothing bad happens, than to retaliate, because then we might lose one, but if we retaliate now, we're going to lose 10. Fast forward to the early 30s through 45, where you have Hitler coming into power and you have the Holocaust. Throughout Europe, though, Jews didn't have the ability necessarily to defend themselves, right? They didn't have a Second Amendment. So all of a sudden, the Holocaust hits. You now have 6 million dead Jews. As many as they could immigrate to America. And once again, they joined these little Jewish communities in New York and all around. But what they do is, they want to, after witnessing and being part of the Holocaust, all they want to do is be left alone and live their life. So once again, they put their heads in the ground. They do not adapt. I don't want to use the word assimilate, but adapt to American culture, and they don't embrace the Second Amendment, which gives them the right to defend themselves. They yet again put their faith in a government and a police force to protect them. Over time, with so many Jews kind of getting rid of, maybe becoming Reformed or conservative Jews, and this is not a knock on Reformed or conservative Jews, I don't want anyone to think it is, but Reformed and conservative Jews tend to be a little more left-leaning. So, from the 40s to the 60s, you have these Jews building these communities, starting to veer more left, and then you have, all of these left-leaning Jews that start believing that, guns are bad, guns are bad. Well, to them, yeah, guns are bad because look what just happened to them 20 years before, right? You had the Holocaust.
Sure.
Now you have the children of Holocaust survivors, like my parents are children of Holocaust survivors, and all of a sudden, the new era of Jews, once again, are anti-gun because that's what they learned from their parents who were Holocaust survivors. Now, I'm a grandchild of a Holocaust survivor, and unfortunately, that mentality of guns are bad is still a very, very prevalent thing in the Jewish communities across America. I am happy to say that I do believe that the ball is slowly veering back in favor of the 2A, but it takes time, it takes effort and education. So that's why my personal belief why Jews today tend to be more anti-gun is, they just don't want to have anything to do with anything that might hurt or kill somebody.
Which is admirable. I mean, if it's coming from a place of, I don't want to say pacifism, but at least from a place of peacefulness, I mean, that makes sense. Although, in my mind, and probably yours as well, I would guess, we probably would all of us on the panel say that the best way to have peace is to be ready for violence, right? If you are not capable of violence, then you're not peaceful. You are, I'm trying to remember how that saying even goes now. But you can't be a peaceful person unless you can also be a violent person. Yes. Otherwise, you're just a victim.
Yeah. No, but that's exactly what it is that Jews nowadays, it's not necessarily coming from I don't want to hurt somebody necessarily. There's a irrational fear.
Okay.
And, take Jew out of the equation, and we all know, I'm sure, people who have a rational fear of guns, which makes them anti-gun, right?
Right.
Now, put the word Jew before that, and those are the same people, they just happen to be Jewish. The only difference is Jews should be embracing the Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
They shouldn't be cowering in fear. They shouldn't be, pushing left and trying to get rid of our gun rights. And unfortunately, you have some of the biggest gun grabbers in the country, Dianne Feinstein, Blumenthal, Bloomberg. You can just keep on going even.
Right.
All of them are Jews, but mostly in name only, right? They're not necessarily practicing Jews, and they use their Judaism once in a blue moon to get those votes and money. But besides that, that's another reason why Jews have a bad rap in America for being anti-gun, is because the biggest anti-gunners out there happen to be Jews.
And sorry, John, if I could just ask something too, and that I don't know much, if any, about Judaism.
Yeah,
that surprised me though, especially after the Holocaust. In my mind, it would have made sense, especially once they got over to America, we have a Second Amendment to be pro Second Amendment, because never again will I allow that to happen to my people. Is the attitude that I would have thought people would have had. So it does kind of surprise me to hear what your take on it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a mentality, right? It's a mentality of we want to be left alone, and we want to keep our heads down because we want to avoid any kind of conflict with anybody else that might want to hurt us. And once again, if we just keep our head down, well, we can just call 911 and the cops will be there. Well, what happened last time you put your faith in the government, right? This is something that when I began writing children's books on firearms education, firearms safety, the Pew Pew Jew wasn't a thing. That was a moniker given to me about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, maybe 2 years ago. A friend of mine in the industry, we were talking. He's like, "Oh, I think maybe he saw me on Coley and Noir show, and he's like, man, he's the Pew Pew life, but you're like the Pew Pew Jew." And like, I was like, "Oh, dude, I'm running with that." So I got my logo designed, and now I'm building a brand, and I'm getting messages daily from Jews around the world at this point. And not to, I'm not trying to boost my ego, but I'm getting messages of people who I'm inspiring to pick up their guns or purchase their first guns, get the training, and start defending the Second Amendment. And for me, I kind of fell into that. I've become this, one of my rabbis jokes to me all the time. In Judaism, we have something called kiruv, and that basically translates to bring closer. So a lot of times you'll have Jews who have no connection to Judaism, and they'll reach out to a rabbi that specializes in kiruv, and kind of brings them back into the fold, helps them connect with their Jewish roots. Now, doesn't necessarily try to make them Orthodox, but at least get that Jewish connection back in their life. So he always tells me, he's like, "Hey man, you're doing God's work. You're bringing Jews from all walks of life that no big rabbi would be able to connect with. You're connecting with them on a totally different level and inspiring them and to be proud of their Judaism." Mm-hmm. And because of the Pew Pew Jew now, that's something I take very seriously. And it's something that I'm very proud of, especially educating Jews on their freedoms and Second Amendment rights.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it, when you realize that, because I mean, I'm a nobody as well. I've got a big mouth and a camera and a microphone on the internet, but that's literally all I have going on right now. But when I hear from somebody that says, "Hey, I saw what you did online, or I saw what you did on Facebook, or whatever it was, and I liked this, and it inspired me, to go from point A over here to point B and do this." I mean, it's cool. And, I don't think there's any shame in admitting that's cool. It's encouraging too. That feedback that you're getting from other Jews. I mean, it's not just for your ego. It is for your encouragement to keep doing what you're doing. I believe that's God's way of telling you, good job, keep going. What you're doing, I'm using. And that's what I want him to do with my podcast too, is, what I'm doing, I want him to use it. Sometimes these don't go the direction that I foresee when I click go live at the beginning of the night, and we end in a completely different direction than what I thought we were going to go. But I figured that's probably okay. I'm kind of along for the ride on some of this stuff too. So no, there's no negative side from admitting that you've got people reaching out to you. I think it's great, and it's really cool to hear that. I'm inspired too. I mean, by some of the things that other people say and do. And so one of the things that I have seen that you are doing and reaches out to, I mean, just a multitude of people, and obviously not just people our own age. You've got a few books out there, and now I'll be honest, I haven't read everything that you've written, but I have seen a few of the books that you've written out there. And what I've seen is directed at the younger crowd, the kids, right? The next generation coming up. So would you tell us a little bit about not only what you do, but also why you decided to write books for kids instead of writing books for people like Travis and Defense Dad and myself?
Yeah, no. So start off, the reason why I geared towards kids and not adults, because adults are big boys and big girls, and they can make decisions themselves. And if they want to purchase a firearm, that's their right. If they want to act stupidly with the firearm, that's their right. At the end of the day, they are responsible for their own actions. And there's some fantastic books out there already that, from Masad Ayub and just, God, so many books out there from these just amazing individuals that are for adults. When I bought my first gun, I was in California. At the time, the only one, the gun roster in California was quite small, and I was able to get a Glock 19 Gen 3, which is my baby to this day, and I absolutely love that thing.
That's awesome.
When I bought it, I kept it for my parents. I didn't tell my parents, even though I was out of the house. I was out of the house. I had 2 kids, but I just didn't need that Jewish guilt you always see in movies and stuff. By the way, 100% true. They got it. They depict it so well in Hollywood. But that aside, I just didn't need that hanging over my head with my parents, just because I don't want to hear it. I just didn't care. One night we went to my parents' house for dinner, and my younger brother, like most younger brothers do, kind of messed me over pretty badly. And he's like, "Hey, so Yehuda, when are we going to go shoot your Glock?" And my parents had a full-on Chernobyl meltdown, right? We're talking about, you go back into history, and I'm sure there was an earthquake the minute my parents said something in LA. And they didn't talk to me for weeks. I think it was up to a month even. They just were so upset at me that, I was irresponsible for, how can I bring a firearm into the house with kids in the home? And they didn't know that I also had a Benelli shotgun and a Colt AR. Yeah, they had no idea about that. They just knew about my Glock. And, it got me thinking, with kids in the home, what's the best way to educate children on firearm safety? What age do you educate them? And I started doing a lot of research. And of course, you always go to the NRA's website, because they're the NRA and they have the Eddie Eagle program. And I was, reading about the Eddie Eagle program. And it hit me. I'm like, wow, that there is so much more to gun safety than just finding what to do if you find a gun somewhere it's not supposed to be. And I went to the next best place for research, and that would be Amazon. And I was shocked to find that there is no book. Yeah, through a lot of bathroom visits. Well, I'm glad I helped some people. I was shocked to find that there is no book directed. That there's no book directed at kids. For kids to read, right? There's books for parents on what maybe the proper path to take with kids, but I wanted a book that I can sit down and read with my children. And I was blown away that at this time it was 2011, 2011, I think. I was shocked out of my mind that there was nothing on the market. I was like, how is that even remotely possible? Guns have been around for like 400 years, and you're telling me it's now 2011 and no one had thought to write a book? And I've always loved creative writing. So one day I pulled out my iPhone and you can come in. I pulled out my iPhone and on my notes, on the notes app, I wrote the first draft of the book. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know if anything I wrote was correct. All I know is I sent it to a buddy of mine in the LAPD, and he called me up. He's like, "Dude, give me 15 minutes." And 15 minutes later, he just sent me a freaking encyclopedia of corrections on what I wrote. I listened to him. I redid the book, sent it back to him. For a few months, we were going back and forth, and he kept pushing me to, dude, you got to get this book out. You got to get this book out. I'm like, yeah, it's not that easy. I said, plus, come on, I just wrote this because I like creative writing. I'm never going to actually be a published author. Like, not going to happen. But this guy who I'm super close with, he was the guy who taught me how to shoot. He just literally lit a fire under me, and he's like, dude, I will like beat you to freaking death if you don't get this book out. And it wasn't as easy as he wanted. It took me 5 years. When I finally finished it, got it edited, the book Sandy Hook hit. And all of a sudden, I have this book that shows kids and guns in a positive light. And I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm out. See you later. I'm like, not happening. But over time, I got the book. I kept trying to shop it around. No one was interested. I moved to Texas in 2014. I met with some people, and they're like, I gave him the manuscript of the book. And he's like, what do you want me to do with this? It's like a 3-page Microsoft Word document. He's like, if you want to try shopping this around, you got to get it illustrated. So I talked to people. I raised some money. I got the book illustrated, and still nothing. And it wasn't until my son, I actually forgot a big part, but something I'm trying to forget about because it was a dark, dark moment in my life. I actually got a publishing deal. I got an agent after being turned down for 4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
I got it. The day I signed the paper, I think it was like 2 weeks after I had my third kid. I was on cloud 9. I mean, all of a sudden, like, here I am. I'm actually going to become a published author. And 3 months later, they canceled the deal. My agent dropped me. And yeah, it was brutal. I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I got the email. I was sitting in the movie theater watching The Secret Life About Pets with my 2 older kids. And to this day, I hate that movie because mentally it just messed me over. And I went into a very deep, dark place, up somewhere I never want to go again, because this became a dream of mine, and to have it stripped away like that out of nowhere was pretty rough. And about 6 months went by, and my son came home. He was 6 years old, the one you guys saw before we went live.
Mm-hmm.
He came home, and you can see it right here. I have it framed right here. 6 years old. It says, when I'm 50, I'm going to be like my dad. I'm going to write. And it was at that moment when I realized that coming out with this book was not about me. It's all about my son, and showing him that no matter how hard things get, you do not quit on your dreams. And 6 months later, I got a publishing deal with a small publishing house. And that just kind of was the beginning. And like I said, that was my first book.
Very cool. Very cool. Before I forget, we had a question out here from Kingpin. He wants to know, did you get any heat about harming kids with your books since they're about guns?
You know, I was really hoping to get some. I was really hoping Moms Demand Action would totally, hang me out to dry.
There's no bad press, right?
Oh yeah, seriously. I mean, I was literally praying. I'm like, please let Shannon Watts come after me. Please, please, please. Like I said, I grew up with Ben Shapiro. I used to write for Ben Shapiro. I'm like, please let her come after me, because all of a sudden, Ben, can you help me out? And like, boom, I'm a millionaire overnight. Fortunately, my book was incredibly well received, especially within the firearms world, with people like Masad Ayub and people like Alan Gottlieb of the Second Amendment Foundation, Alan West, all these people endorsing my book. And a lot of other big names endorsing my book, and I got just very, very positive feedback. And I only got one or two moron idiot trolls online that, telling me that like, oh, I'm a baby killer, stuff like that. But nothing that warrants any bad press. So,
Well,
yeah,
maybe after this, maybe we can get some books out there, and maybe just maybe we can have somebody get mad. So,
yeah, I'm as
guys, you heard it here first. Anybody that wants to get offended, please contact. Go to yehudaremer.com, right?
Or the pewpewjew.com, yeah.
Or the pewpewjew.com. Make sure you put THE in the front of it, right? It's thepewpewjew.com. And please get offended at these books. I mean, how dare we teach kids that guns are okay to have as long as you respect them?
Yeah, and I mean, it was brutal because then, like 3 months later, 3 months later, I came out with the coloring book version of the book is called Safety On. 3 months later, I came out with the coloring book version because
so Ghost Tactical could read it too.
Yes, and I mean, we all know he's a former jarhead.
Marines.
Yeah, he was in the Marines. I should send him for his birthday next year a coloring book and a pack of crayons. I'm like, and enjoy your reading.
Big pack,
right?
You better send him 2 packs because he's going to eat 1 pack and then he'll still need something to color with.
But yeah, so I made my book into a coloring book because children are very visual, and it's the exact same book, just kids can color it. And it gives them the ability to visualize it the way they see it, but internalize all the messages in their own mind with their creativity. So I did that, and God, I released 2 more books that year. So it was.
Sorry, if I could have you expand upon that, though. So that kind of answers as far as the media or the gun community. But how has the feedback been in your personal life between family, friends, that sort of thing? And the reason I'm asking that is I've got a very small channel, but since people found out that I'm teaching my daughter to shoot and I bought her a gun for her birthday, I've had people in my personal life just think that's just the most horrible thing in the whole wide world. Outside of the gun world, if you go to the gun range, everybody thinks it's awesome. But friends and family members, I've had some people think like, how can you even put a gun in your kid's hand? And I have to explain to them that, well, if you don't put it in their hand, teach them how to do it, how are they ever going to be safe with it? So, what has your feedback been within your family, with your history of your family not liking your gun purchase, that sort of thing?
So the cool thing is, I didn't know at the time, but my siblings all bought copies of my book, even though they were not into guns. But that was more, look, my brother came out with a book. My parents have really, I mean, in the 3.5 years that my book came out, and not just the book, but them seeing what I'm doing with my life now, becoming this, voice within the Jewish community of America, inspiring people. My parents have definitely made a complete 180, and they are incredibly supportive. I mean, to the point where I still like to, they're my parents, so I like to, push their buttons a little. But I took my 8-year-old daughter to the range for the first time yesterday, and to me, it was my dream come true, my little princess, to take her to the range. Someone actually gifted me a Davy cricket that was black with, pink splashes on it. So my daughter was like, oh my God, I have my own gun. And I got a great video of her shooting. And John, I don't know if you saw when I posted it on yesterday on Facebook.
I did. I saw her. She's holding it up by herself and everything.
Yeah, she's holding it up. She's, racking the bolt and pulling the little, I don't even know what you call, firing pin back thing in the back of the gun. And
I call it a cocking piece.
Is that what it is? Okay, the cocking piece.
I don't know if that's the right term or not. It's the cocking piece or the cocking
right.
knob to me.
And like I sent it to my mom because I know like my father's like totally gung ho now. Like my father makes me look insanely left wing. I mean, he is like 3% right wing now. My dad, and I sent it to my mom, and she was like, "That's great," but like in a positive, that's great. Not like I can't believe you're ruining my little granddaughter. But to the most part, it's interesting. Over the years since I moved to Texas, I've seen a gradual shift in people's mentality. So at this point, when I talk with family members or I talk with, just other people in my community, they think one of two things. A, they're like, that's great. We're happy you're teaching her, exactly like you've been preaching, take out the mystique of firearms at a young age. You're good to go. Or, which I get a lot still, is, wow, I can't believe he just took his 8-year-old daughter shooting. What a gun nut. How insane. Like I still get that, but I have been blessed with a uncanny ability to tell people to, I know this is a family show, but take a hike. Trying to keep it rated G there.
No, I hear you.
Yeah, like I peer pressure has never been an issue with me, as well as what people think of me. I just never, I don't care. So people, family members, they might call me, talk behind my back that I'm not shy about my views, my political views or anything like that. And I'm sure I have family members who think I'm a racist because, I'm a gun-toting, proud American. I believe all lives matter and, stuff like that. And I have some left-leaning relatives. And, hey, you want to think I'm a racist? That's fine. There's no atheist in a foxhole. You'll be the first one to call me when you need me. So, it is what it is. I don't care. I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it. The only one that's going to tell me what I can and cannot do is my wife. And even she struggles with that. So, just if you want to defense that, if you just want to take your daughter shooting and teach her how to shoot, just screw what everyone says. Just you do you. You know you're doing the right thing. You're training your daughter to make sure that not only does she appreciate our Second Amendment right and what that defends, our freedom, but you're teaching her to be an independent woman at a young age. That I always joke that when my daughter goes on her first date and the guy tries to be all macho, is like, hey, let's go to the gun range, and my daughter is like this big. I mean, she's super petite. Like, I can't wait for a guy to take her to a gun range and the guy acts all macho, and all of a sudden my daughter just smokes him on a gun, just like, like that's what I want. I want whoever is going to be dating or marrying my daughter, I want them to be terrified that if they treat her bad or would do anything to harm her, she will be able to take care of herself. So you do you. Don't don't worry about whatever anybody says. And if they have a problem with it, let them have a problem with it. That's their problem, not yours.
Oh, I don't have any problem telling people I have no problem with what they think. It's none of their business. But to me, I'm glad to hear your perspective as another father, because it just annoys the living daylights out of me. People who don't know what they're talking about just think it's such a horrible thing to introduce kids to guns. So I'm really glad to hear about your approach of it.
Yeah, and I'm coming from the Jewish community, right? So like in the Jewish community, a lot of the reason why Jews are, there's a lot of, a lot of Jews tend to be closet gun owners because, Jews are very close-knit and tight community. So like we have on our Saturdays, right? We do not, we don't watch TV. We don't have any, it's our Sabbath. We can't do anything except get together with friends. So a lot of times you'll have people who will be like, oh, we don't want to go to that person's house because they might have a gun. So there's a lot of Jews who are closet gun owners because they don't want to become a pariah in the community. Me, my kids. I mean, John, like I said, you saw that video. Her first time. Did you see that trigger discipline?
Yep.
8 years old, never picked up a gun. Finger off the trigger until she was ready to shoot. My 10-year-old, that kid was freaking using my micro conversion kit with my Glock 19 and my Swamp Fox optic, just pow pow.
That's cool.
Proper gun control, proper gun safety handling. And you know what? I am very, very firm, convinced that if God forbid my kids would ever find a gun somewhere it's not supposed to be, they know exactly what to do. And I would actually feel more comfortable with my kids picking up the gun before another adult picks up the gun who might not know what to do.
And that definitely makes some sense because, I mean, you live in Texas now.
Yeah.
But arguably, you live in one of the non-Texas parts of Texas, right? I mean, there's a couple of areas in Texas that are kind of going more liberal because we all think of Texas as, gun toting, horse riding cowboys, right? For the most part. But I mean, you're in the Dallas area, and Dallas, Austin, Houston, they're all kind of going away from that conservative side that we all just assume Texas is. And
Right.
So, I mean, that makes some sense. If somebody around that area, sees a gun, just lying in the street or, in an empty lot or something like that, I mean, yeah, you need to be able to train your kids up. And it's sad that none of us have a problem believing your kids probably are better equipped to safely deal with that situation than 9 out of 10 adults that are going to be walking by. But I understand exactly where you're coming from when you say that too.
Right. Obviously, I wouldn't want my kids to find a random gun, but my kids have some play dates with people, and I'm convinced that my kid, especially my 10-year-old, I mean, I'm absolutely convinced that he would have better gun handling and take all the safety precautions, making sure the gun's pointed down, kind of looking to make sure, obviously with the finger off the trigger. I mean, he would know exactly what to do. And also what's great for me is I work with a FFL, that partner of mine. He calls himself Black Tie Guns, and I do a lot of photography work for him. So I'm literally bringing home like F1 rifles and pistols and Nighthawks and shotguns, right? I mean, you name it, I'm bringing it home. And every time I bring something home, like I sit down with my son and my daughter, I'm like, okay, this is how you pull the bolt back, this is the shotgun, and I give them a whole training session on what to do. So at the end of the day, I just don't care what people think about me or how either my kids or the way I want to raise them.
Now, if any of the houses next to you or across the street from you come up for sale, would you let me know? Because I want to be your neighbor. I want to be there too when you bring those home to photograph them.
No, there's a lot. I've had my hands on some really cool stuff. We work very close with F1 firearms, so I'm constantly bringing F1 home. We're working with a new company that is. I did not sign an NDA, but I respect them too much. They're called Third Gen Tactical, and they are building a new rifle that I haven't shot it yet, but let's just say, and I know we all hear this all the time, but I don't mince words, and I mean, if what they tell me is accurate and correct, their rifle that should be coming out hopefully January will revolutionize the rifle industry.
Wow, that's awesome.
So I work very closely with companies like that, so I love it. For who would have thought a little photographer Jewish boy from LA was going to be living in Texas, working in the firearms industry?
No, that's cool. That's awesome. If I could swing a way to work in the firearms industry as my full-time job, I'd be doing it too. So anybody that's out there that wants to hire a guy that really has no special skills, but has a big mouth and a microphone. I mean, I'm your man. I'm just letting you guys know out there. You heard it here first. Nope, that's really awesome. I'm kind of running out of things that I was going to have you talk about tonight. So at this point, Travis or Defense Dad, I know you guys have had some questions and comments throughout the night here, but what do you want to either ask or say to Yehuda while we've got some time?
So a question I have, and I guess there's kind of a connection. I'll explain my reason why I asked this question a little bit later on. Yehuda, what is kind of the attitude about owning firearms in Israel? Because what we see a lot on the YouTube side is the marketing of the IWI firearms and the participation in the IDF. And, Israel always has to defend itself. Is it more common for people to own firearms in Israel? Can a citizen of Israel own a firearm? I honestly don't know. I'm just kind of curious about that.
Okay,
I'm surprised that attitude doesn't carry over more. And I'll explain why when you get done. But yeah.
Okay, so first things first, I am not a fan, and I get so much crap for this. Not a fan of IWI products. I don't like. Everyone assumes, oh, you're the Pew Pew Jew. How many Tavors do you have? I'm like 0, and unless someone gifts me one, I will never buy one. It shoots nicely. I will admit that, but I'm an AR guy through and through. Sorry, children. I'm an AR guy through and through. I love my AR. It is just awesome. So, IWI, they're cool. They're if you like them, by all means, if you shoot well with it, great. In terms of Israeli gun law, it sucks. It is so bad. If you live in one of the cities like Jerusalem, for example, it's nearly impossible to get a gun permit. It's not easy. The only way, I think you have to be living in the city for at least 3 years, and then you have to do like psychological tests, and on top of that, you're only allowed to own in your home 50 rounds at any given time.
Wow.
You are not a civilian is not allowed to own any kind of long gun. So no rifles, no shotguns. And on top of that, you are only allowed to own one gun at a time. So if I'm a Glock 19 owner, and all of a sudden I'm like, you know what, I really like that new SIG P320, right? I have to go through loops to now go sell my Glock, re-register a new gun that I buy. The laws there are just horrible, and like I said, you can only own 50 rounds at a time. So I don't know about you guys, but there's probably about 3 different ranges that I frequent in Dallas or in Texas here, depending on if I have time to drive further out to an outdoor range that I like, or if I'm just taking someone, training someone at an indoor range. So in Israel, let's say you go to this one range and you buy 1,000 rounds of ammunition. Well, how that works is that you basically have credit at that range. So you buy the 1,000 rounds, but you don't get to bring them home. Oh, wow. You are forced to go back to that range and say, okay, I know I have 800 rounds left. Give me 100 rounds to shoot today. I mean, I know you see people walking around, one big thing people are always sending me is like these drop dead gorgeous Israeli women with like short skirts and like decked out ARs and stuff like that. Well, those are all people who are on either active duty or reservists. They are not civilians. That's why they're allowed to carry them. Once you become a civilian, nope, you can't get it. So I have a lot of friends who are in Israel who are trainers, and I talk to them about this all the time. They're like, we wish we can do what you guys have in America. They just,
wow.
Like IWI products, you do not see them. You might see the Tavors, like some, you see soldiers walking around with them, but you do not have, there's the IWI market is an American market. It is not an Israeli market.
I was kind of curious because that's just how you see the products marketed. And I guess the reason why I asked the question is the connection you might have back to Israel. My family, my dad's side, had to flee Czechoslovakia in the 40s, the late 40s, because of the invasion of communism. They had to basically just leave. It was a one-day work, all of us. And so they moved to a community in Nebraska with other Czech families. And I've seen the photos of my great uncles and aunts and great grandparents. I mean, they would have pictures of them when they come back from their hunting. There were guns everywhere. Everybody had guns. And the idea was that because of what we went through in Europe, being totally defenseless, being stripped of everything, losing our property, we have a right to have guns in this country. That was just understood. There were shotguns and hunting rifles and handguns. And so it was this idea that you now have this ability to protect yourself. Like everybody I knew had guns as a kid growing up. And so I was just surprised, especially after having to go through what my family went through, losing everything. I'm like, and coming here, I was surprised that there isn't maybe more of a feeling of being able to protect yourself or using that right. But like you said, with the closet gun owners, that might be the higher percentage than what you realize.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, it happens to be just, you would think that a place like Israel would have a lot more lenient gun laws, but they don't. And it's people always ask me when I'm moving to Israel, and I, and look, deep down inside, would I love to live in Israel? 100%. But I was born in America. I bleed red, white, and blue, and until the Messiah comes and Jews are secure in Israel, and I have the right to own whatever I want in Israel, I'm gonna carry my Glock 19 on my side. I have my little micro conversion kit with 150 rounds and 30 round mags in a little backpack that I take everywhere with me.
Nice.
I'm not giving that up.
Nope, that's cool. Real quick, kind of goes along with what we were just talking about. Blitz out there says, not being Jewish myself, I always kind of found it odd that many Jewish individuals I've talked to here are anti-gun, considering Israel's long history of regional fighting. Am I just ignorant? So do you want to weigh in on that, Yehuda?
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed about a lot of Americans who are not Jewish, and this is not a knock on anybody, it really is just a matter of, education, right? So
I'm offended. I don't even know what you're going to say. I'm already offended. No,
exactly, right? No, to answer that question, there's a very big difference between Jews and Israelis. Okay? A lot of people believe like, oh, you're Jewish, so, Israel. I'm like, no, I've been to Israel plenty of times. I love Israel, but I am a Jewish American. Well, I'm an American that happens to be Jewish, right? Now, let's put the American first. Not that that's more important, but I'm an American who happens to be Jewish. That the notion of what was the question again? I want to get you still have that. I want to get the wording right.
There you go.
On many Jewish individuals I've talked to are anti-guns. Right. Considering Israel's long history of regional fighting, am I just ignorant? It's not a matter of being ignorant. Israel is Israel. Yes, they have regional fighting. They are a pea surrounded by a billion people that want to wipe them off the face of the earth. That's Israel. In America, it's completely different. It literally, it's two separate countries. So just because I'm an American that happens to be an Orthodox Jew living in America doesn't mean that anything like anti-gun views and stuff like that, completely different. Now, however, if you want to ask an Israeli, oh, don't you think the gun laws might be crazy considering the regional fighting? Then yeah, that's the same thing as asking an American during the colonial days of, well, with all the British bossing us around, don't you think we should be sticking to our guns? That's more of a comparison versus Jewish Americans to Israeli Jews or Israelis.
So from what you're saying, would it be safe to say then, just to kind of sum that up a little bit, is that the there are as many differences between the Jews in Israel versus the Jews in America as there are the Christians in Israel and the Christians here. I mean, I know that there's Christians in both countries. I know that I don't relate very well to people in Israel, no matter their religion, because they have a completely different life, completely different culture than what I do. We may worship the same God and we can have that common ground, but other than that, our societal and political beliefs are going to be probably quite different, and it's no different no matter what religion or what faith people have, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, it has nothing to do. I mean, you can say, what's the difference between Christians in America and Christians in England or Christians
Yeah.
in wherever, like that really, that's really what it comes down to. It's just a matter of the only thing we have in common in terms of Jews in America and Jews in Israel is that we're Jews. That's it. The way of life, the mentality that you have is all based on your geographical location. So, Jews are Jews, yes, but yeah,
Sure.
that's really what it is.
Sure. Patriot in the Dark out there. It wants to know, how about teachers in Israel? He thought that they used to be able to carry. Do you know anything? Can you weigh in on that at all? I mean, I know you're not a quote unquote expert in all things Israeli, but I mean, you've been there more often than anybody else in the panel.
Right. Yeah, I think to my knowledge, it's the same thing. A person might be able to get a if you are permitted to become a carrier, like you can, I believe, carry in a school in Israel, right? It's just a matter of, I guess, getting the right permit. It's not something that automatically every school has, every teacher in Israel. That's the thing, is that they make it seem like Israel is like every single person is strapped, and it's not true at all.
Yeah, I mean that's the impression even that I have gotten from even the Pro 2A community is, everybody in Israel gets issued a gun as soon as they have their bar mitzvah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's part of being a man. You get your Uzi or your Tavor, and you're good to go, right?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not true at all. And in terms of teachers being armed, I have no doubts that one of two things: they might not be allowed to have it in class, but there are security guards, I believe, at nearly every school. I have no doubts. I know I have nieces and nephews who live in Israel. I have no doubts that where they live, I mean, they live within a security area, and they have guards at the school. But if there's a real imminent threat, then I have no doubts that the teachers have to go for training and stuff like that. Like this is what I'm guessing. Before I'm guessing that, I don't know for sure. I can easily find out, and you can post it later on your page. Hey, follow up. I can find that out. That's not a problem at all. But
Sure, and also,
1 second. My wife is what? Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, no. My wife is saying that when you turn 18, you go to the army. So a lot of young men and women in Israel are trained. However, like I said, once you become a civilian, it's a very different life there.
Sure. Here, real quick, I'm just going to throw this out into the chat. I think this is the right link to get the Facebook page out there. Anybody that wants to reach out directly to Yehuda, you can do that through the website, or I don't know what other social media you're on. We'll get there in a little bit, but because I'm only on Facebook and YouTube. So
I'll tell you, I'll be honest. I don't remember if that's the right Facebook one, but if you have to friend me, and this is not me being a total jerk or anything, if you have to friend me, it is not the right page.
Gotcha.
I have my personal page, and I have my public page. If you do want to follow me,
this is to the public page.
yeah, oh, that's the public page. Great. Then I never remember which is which. Please go to my public page. I have like 250 people waiting for me to respond. I don't know who any of them are, so
I can relate. I've got
Yeah.
the same thing. Not nearly 250 people, maybe two to five, but I'm the same way. I mean, there are people who have been following my public page for a long time, and in your case, I mean, they're both under your name, whereas mine is my public page is Sandhills Shooter on Facebook. But I mean, I've got people that, you know, it's not hard to figure out if you're in some of the same groups that I'm in, you know, which one is my private page and what my name is, and send me a friend request. And if I know who you are and we've interacted a little bit and I think that you're, you know, not some loony bin, then chances are I'll probably go ahead and accept that friend request. But otherwise, you know, it's just I don't accept friend requests blindly on my personal page because I don't want the whole world seeing you know, my personal stuff. I've got it set to where only my friends can see my stuff, because that's part of having this online persona is you keep things separate, not so much for ourselves, but you've got 3 other reasons in your house why you keep your private stuff private. And I've got one other reason. And then, well, I mean, you can see Edward back there over my shoulder. We don't want anything to happen to him either. So
I did just post in the YouTube chat a my Twitter, my Instagram handle. So
I see it there. Yep.
People can definitely, you know, find me. I do a lot of Instagram, especially I do a lot of Instagram live. So, you know, a great place to follow me is really Instagram, just because it's kind of where my home is, and building my social media platform and able to get my products out there. And I do a lot of interviews with, you know, some cool people out there, and
Sure.
It's a lot of fun.
Yep. And up there on the screen too, I've got the Twitter and Instagram handle. For those of you who are not watching right now and are listening, it is at the Pew Pew Jew. It's pretty simple. It's exactly what you would expect it to be. It's just like the website, thepewpewjew.com, except for it's at the Pew Pew Jew. So there is that there. So we've kind of talked about some heavy stuff, but you know, we like to talk about some fun stuff too.
Yeah.
So earlier you had said that you're very much an AR guy more than a Tavor or any other type of platform,
Yes.
at least when it comes to rifles. So I want to know a little bit about your journey since that very first gun purchase, you know, since you bought that 3rd generation Glock 19, which I've got a Gen 4, love my Glock 19, first firearm that I bought. I'm not going to say as an adult, it's not, but it's the first firearm that I've bought since I started reaccumulating firearms. I had a spot in my life where I was flat broke and sold what I had for rent money. And, you know, there was nothing with sentimental value that I, you know, nobody wants to part with a gun, but I'd like to have them all back if I could. But anyway, I didn't have to part with anything with sentimental value. But right now it's the same thing. I started off with a Glock 19. I've kind of grown the collection a little bit. I've gone on a journey. I never used to be interested in ARs. Now I own one, and now I know how they work, and now I want to customize mine and do some stuff. So take us a little bit on your journey, not necessarily, and you can throw in there the mindset and the you know, what your thought process and reasoning is behind them too. But I just kind of want to know where your journey has brought you thus far, from that very first Glock 19 to today, you know, just in the gun ownership part for now. What's that journey looked like for you?
Hold on.
And ownership and interest, I should say.
All right, give me 1 second.
All right. In the meantime, everyone could watch me take a
bust
drink of
out
water.
the flow chart, huh?
Oh, he's going to the whiteboard. It's going to be like a Glenn Beck special.
Yep. There you go.
You Dallas people, I tell you.
Okay, so I have a couple of different really cool things that I have done. Started off with a Glock 19, moved to Benelli shotgun, my Colt AR-15.
Now, just to forewarning, since we're live, you can tell us about them, but you can't do show and tell.
Oh, I forgot about
YouTube has rules, so just before we do anything that is banned on YouTube, I know you want to show us, and you sure can when we're not live before we log out. But you can.
That's why so many of us have our guns sitting up in the background.
Right.
You know?
Yep. You can mount them on the wall or just stage them behind you and not touch them. Yeah. So go ahead and tell us about them though, because I'll picture it in my mind.
Oh man, such a letdown.
I know, right? Be descriptive. We've got people who aren't looking.
So I went from Glock 19 to Benelli to Colt AR to Glock 43X, a Ruger 1022, the Davy Cricket, a Smith & Wesson 22, the MP22 for my son to shoot a handgun. And then I went and I got, it's in my hand, you can't see it, I'm holding it right now, a Walther P38 with Nazi insignia.
Oh, wow. I really wish you could show us that. That'll be cool.
I have no idea.
I will tell you what I'll do is you send me a picture of that and I will post it up on YouTube and Facebook, just the still shot. Later
now?
on. Well, no, later on.
So this is actually a prized possession of mine because I actually got it for incredibly cheap from a World War II veteran. And I mean, I told him the price, he was fine with it. So the reason why it's so important to me, this piece, is there is no bigger middle finger to Hitler than a little Jewish boy owning one of his firearms, right?
Right.
I wrote an entire article, which I'll send to you, that has pictures of the gun in the article. It was titled, "I'm an Orthodox Jew, and this is why I bought a Nazi gun." And if you want to know, God, the flack I got for buying that gun.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
From the Jewish community or just in general?
No, from the Jewish community. It was amazing. The Jewish community is like, "Oh, you bought a gun that killed Jews." I'm like, well, first off, it was manufactured in 1944. So the chances of it being sent to someone at a concentration camp or something like that, I'm going to guess are very slim. I'm going to guess it was sent to the front line.
It probably killed Americans or Englishmen.
Right. So, but I'm going to go with the story that the former Marine that I purchased it from killed a Nazi, and that's okay with me. But the reason why I bought it was, I bought it because I wanted to teach my children, A, evil exists, and B, it's not about the gun. It has nothing to do with the gun. The gun is a tool, nothing more, nothing less. You can put the gun in the hands of someone who's good, and it won't kill anybody. You can put it in the hands of someone bad, and it will. At the end of the day, it's a tool, nothing more, nothing less. I also wanted to teach my kids that Jews for thousands of years have been persecuted and killed, and the biggest example of that is clearly the Nazis in the Holocaust, and I wanted my kids to understand we're still here, and the only thing that's left of them is this gun.
Right.
My son, I mean, that hit home with my son, and it was a great educational moment. And it was, I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that I purchased it. And the best was I called my rabbi. I'm like, "Rabbi, listen, I've got a chance to buy a Walther P38 Yes, it has Nazi stamp on it, has a swastika on it. What do you think? And I was like, yes, if you buy it, you're gonna burn in hell. Like that's what I was expecting. And he just tells me, he turns to me, he goes, Yehuda, sometimes you need to pick up your enemy's sword and use it against them. And I'm like, yes. And yeah, so I bought it, and I have it. It's in great condition. I have yet to shoot it, but I'm very proud of that, and very proud of that.
That's very cool.
And then my last gun that I bought was actually my partner from Black Tie Guns gifted me another Glock 19 Gen 3, and I actually got that completely souped up with. I sent it to DEFCON 3. I don't know if you're familiar with DEFCON 3, but they do some amazing like stippling work and lasering. So it's a battle worn bronze finish with the slide I sent to Maple Leaf Firearms. I got them to put these really cool cuts and ports on it, and it's got my Pew Pew Jew logo down on the grip, and that's kind of became my new EDC. So
that's awesome. That's very cool too. Also, before I forget, I was going to mention also just my opinion on that P38.
Yeah.
Since it's got the Nazi markings, it's got the swastika and probably the eagle too.
Yeah.
On there for now, are those just like proof marks, roll stamps on there, or are those like? Is there some other way that they decorated up a P38? Because I've not seen a Nazi issue P38 before, so I don't know if it's just roll stamps on the barrel or what they have.
I mean, it's on the slide, I believe. Okay. Yeah, it's on the side of the slide. It's it just looked like it's stamped on the slide.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, so
yeah, I mean,
so that being on there and letting your kids know that you have such a thing, that you possess this, just like you said. I mean, it's a tool. It's no better or worse than the person who wields it, right?
Yep.
But at the same time, what you're doing and what you're showing them without ever saying a word is that a symbol, a logo, a drawing has no power. That swastika is as evil as the people were and are that it represents today and back then. That symbol it's worthless. It means nothing. It's just a couple lines. And it's got no power of its own. It's also it's not inherently evil as in fact, it was taken from a Native American tribe. It was not designed to be evil.
Before Native American, it came from India. I mean, we're talking about the original swastika. And I was actually I don't know if you're familiar with Bree Warner, Tactical NYC. So she's a good friend of mine. She's a firearms instructor, law enforcement actress based out of New York. She's amazing. You should get her on your show. Love this woman to pieces. And
I'm sure willing to let you make an intro.
Yeah, I'll definitely make an intro. And she's fantastic. And I just had a long conversation with her last week, actually, because she was having a conversation with people about, swastikas and Nazism and, just having a political conversation. And I was saying, how it doesn't bother me to see swastikas in the movie, right? There's a fantastic movie called The Admiral, Raging Waters or Raging River, something like that. It's an Asian film about some big naval battle between this little group of Chinese versus Japanese, and it's just a fantastic movie. And in the movie, there are a bunch of monks that are fighting with the Chinese, and they've got big swastikas all over their tunics. And when I first saw the movie a couple of years ago, I was just like, whoa. I know it's from, Tibet, like where the monks and all that. Like, I know that's really where it came from, but so cool to actually see it in a positive light.
Right.
that you don't see in Hollywood ever. You never hear anyone talking about the swastika being a symbol of love. And unfortunately, it's been hijacked. However, watching it in this movie, it was so cool. So I was having a whole conversation with her about it, and that no, like, check this out. Like, it's so unfortunate that I'm sure there are people in India still, or Tibet, or wherever the symbol is from originally, that still use this symbol in the way it was originally meant, in a positive light. So yes, I exactly like you said, my son knows that this firearm and the symbol, the Nazi symbol, the swastika, has no power here. It's no power. And that's something that I'm very, very, very adamant that my children learn, because I don't want them to be victims. I don't want them to have a victim mentality. I want them to grow up saying, yeah, you know what? The Nazis did some serious damage to us, but you know what? I'm still here, and I'm gonna ensure that it doesn't happen again, right? Like, I hate Jews who say never again and don't do anything.
Right.
I always say never again means nothing if you're not willing to do something about it.
Amen to that.
So, yeah, so I'm very passionate about that. And when I went to Auschwitz, I'm 36 now, about 17 years ago, on a educational trip, and I'm sitting in a old barracks in Auschwitz-Birkenau, and I look on the floor and I thought it was a Coca-Cola cap from like a glass bottle, and I pick it up. It's encrusted in dirt, and I'm like, what kind of jerk dropped litters in a place like this? And I'm listening to my tour guide. I'm sitting there for about 20 minutes just rubbing this thing in my hand, and all of a sudden I look down and I'm staring at a swastika. And I actually found a 50-cent coin from Nazi Germany from 1940.
Wow.
I looked into it. Statute of limitations has passed, but you are talking to an international artifact smuggler. Very, very, very proud of that moniker. But that's another thing, I'm here, you're not.
Right.
And that's really, to me, I will not let what Hitler and the Nazis did to my relatives, to my people, I will not let that define who I am today in 2020.
And because of that, seeing the image, seeing a movie with Nazis portrayed in the movie, or with Adolf Hitler portrayed in a movie or on TV, or old news clips, or photos, of the real Adolf Hitler, even, doesn't set you off, right? I mean, you can look at those images and know that, again, they don't have any power over you. What's done is done. Yes, it was one of the most terrible things in history, but at the same time, what's done is done. It's in the past. You're here, and you remember the important thing. And I think that you're dead on. That is what is important, is that not only are you here, but your people are still here. And other than a few pockets, mostly in this country, probably, just because of the freedoms and the protections that people have here, other than a few pockets of a-holes, those people are completely gone. And the Aryans are all but gone, other than, like I said, a few pockets of them here in the US who are, I mean, yeah, they're a-holes. I will not stand for anti anybody group. I mean, I don't care if you're anti-Semite, or if you're anti-black, anti-white, anti-purple with pink stripes. I don't care. If you hate, then you and I are not going to be down, because I don't know what it feels like to hate somebody. And I've been wronged by some people, but I don't know what it feels like to hate somebody. So
I saw a great meme today. A guy's holding a sign that said "Lives Matter," and the comment he made on it, he goes, "If you have to put a color before lives matter, you're racist."
I 100% agree with that.
So
it can be an unpopular opinion these days, but I do agree with that. And
you should see people's reaction when they walk into my house and they see I have this gigantic bookshelf with I'm a massive reader. I love reading, and this huge bookshelf of books, and they're like, "Oh, look, this book on the Constitution, that book on the American Revolution, Mein Kampf, the Bible, And they're like, wait, what? Like, I own Mein Kampf and I've read Mein Kampf. It is a twisted but fascinating look into the psyche of someone.
Why? And again, that to me doesn't surprise me a bit, any more than you owning and liking owning guns and liking guns. I mean, we all like guns. Pretty much everybody listening to my voice right now likes guns, or if they don't like guns, they at least are willing to. I mean, they can see the merits of guns. That's pretty much all of my audience. So why would you not have Mein Kampf? I mean, again, why would you forget the history of who you are and where you came from? If you forget it, then you're likely to go through it again. Maybe not your generation, but your children's children may go through some of the same things if you don't teach them what happened. And that brings me to a question Midnight Range TM had out there in the chat. And I've been sitting on this, other Travis, so that I wouldn't lose your question. I don't know what the first part was about. I didn't scroll back up and see it was what true, but he wants to know your thoughts on tearing down monuments, things like that. All of the cancel culture and the cancel history that's going on right now. What do you think about that kind of concept?
I mean, the fact that I have a real Nazi coin and a real Nazi gun in my possession should be all the answer you need.
Pretty much is.
I am 100% against cancel culture, on every level. On every level. If you want to put a statue of Hitler up, this is America. You do you, right? I saw, for example, there was an article that came out, I think 2 weeks ago. I posted it. Some stupid idiot girl was at a party one night, and it was like 3 a.m. and a neighbor across the street had two Nazi flags flying.
I saw that article.
And she ran and she stole one of them, and the moron, the Nazi, basically shot her as she was running away with the flag. I think they're both being charged. I mean, which they should both be charged. But my whole thing is, if you want to fly the Nazi flag, I'm okay with it. You do you. I don't have to like you. I don't have to agree with you. I'm going to avoid you at all costs. But two things are going to happen. I will never walk by your property, and I will always be armed, because there are a-holes like you out there. End of story. So if you want to put up a statue, by all means. If you are offended by a statue of a slave owner, put the statue up. Talk about he was a slave owner. Let people learn about the bad that happened in America. We're not perfect. There's no question about that. But we also have freedom of speech. And as much as this is a 2A podcast, freedom of speech. But at the same time, because I know someone called me out on this, because I was kind of happy when Nick Cannon got let go by Viacom, right?
Right.
Viacom. He's like, oh, so you don't believe in freedom of speech? I'm like, oh, I 100% believe in freedom of speech. Nick Cannon can say whatever he wants to say. I don't care. It can be as anti-Semitic, anti-white, anti-everything that you can possibly imagine. Doesn't mean there's not consequences.
Viacom has every right to not keep him on staff.
100%. If they do not want to be associated with someone who spews, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, or someone who is rabidly, apparently, anti-white.
Apparently.
Which
is in vogue right now. I mean, let's not dismiss that fact either. There are a ton of people who probably aren't anti-white, but because it is the fashionable thing to do, and even the expected thing to do right now, I mean, you have to go along to get along, right? Or they believe so. If he's one of two things, he's either anti-white or he's a spineless slug. I mean, he's one or the other. He
Right.
may be just completely a yellow-bellied coward for all I know. Nick Cannon is a coward. You can take the audio clip if you want. Or he's a a-hole. and doesn't like people that don't look like him, which makes him a racist, in my opinion. He's one or the other. He's either a coward or a racist or both. But the fact is, you're right. He has a right to say whatever he wants to say. He can go out and stand in the public square and he can say those things, and the police cannot lock him up for what he says is his opinion. And I agree with you. If people want to put up a statue of somebody that I don't like, they have the right to do so. If they want to fly a flag that I don't agree with what that flag represents, they still have the right to do so. And I will fight for their right to express opinions that I detest every bit as hard as I will fight for our right to fly the American flag or to play the national anthem and expect people to stand and salute that flag and pay her the respect that she deserves. And also, it's not just our flag in our country that people disrespect when they refuse to stand or when they take a knee during the anthem. It's the people who fought and bled and died to give them the right to kneel. Now, they have the right to kneel, but again, actions sometimes come with reactions, and people need to be aware of that. And what you say or do, while protected by law, doesn't mean that it's literally just a get out of jail free card. It just means that the police can't lock you up. That's all it means. Freedom of speech means you can't be put in jail for expressing your opinion. It doesn't mean you're free from consequence. You are absolutely right with that.
So to answer his question, yes, I am against tearing down statues. I'm also, I mean, if we want to get super political, I'm against tearing down statues when all you're doing is tearing down statues because you're tearing down statues, right? I mean, they went after, was it Booker T. Washington statue or now who was it?
I can't remember now. They've gone after several statues that were.
I mean, they were just
abolitionists, never owned slaves.
Like I'm saying, like, right. If you're gonna do it right. If you're just gonna start tearing down statues, then you kind of kill your entire sympathy that you're trying to build for your cause. Now, again,
all you're doing is proving your ignorance.
Right. Again, I'm totally fine with if you want to. I'm against tearing down statues, but at the same time, actions have consequences. I'm not gonna sit there and cry over someone who pulled a statue down and got hit in the head and is now in a coma. I'm not.
Right.
You are vandalizing. You are breaking property that doesn't belong to you, and I have zero sympathy for that.
Yep, absolutely. Now, I keep thinking to myself, I'm going to make a standalone video. I've got a series out there called "The Way I See It," and it's exactly that. It's the way I see it. It's no more than my opinion on whatever topic the video is for. But I keep saying I'm going to make one about removing statues and things like that. But the short answer for now is that if you want to remove it, that's one thing. But these are typically public property, and if not, they're private property, which is even worse.
Right.
But taxpayer money had to pay for this, or somebody donated this that is now owned by the city or the county, the state, depending on the monument, what it is. If you want it removed, that's fine. But going in a mob and just causing destruction and breaking that statue off of its base and toppling it, that is just vandalism. That's all it is. All you're doing is exactly what you said, Yehuda. It's you're not creating any sympathy for your cause. You're creating the opposite. You're creating antipathy for your cause,
right.
Because you're doing it wrong. If you want that statue removed, then go to the city council or go to whatever meeting you need to go to when your state legislature is in session. Get on the agenda for whatever you need to get onto and propose that it come down. Let the people vote on it. If more people want it there than not, then we've gone through the democratic process. And if it's not up to a vote to the people, but you have a city council, which is the way a republic works, then if you can't convince your council members to vote to take that down, then again, you tried, but that is how our government is supposed to work. Let the government's let the people and influence the governments to make the decision, but the people need to make the decision, not the mob. It needs to not be an impulse. It needs to not be a, well, there's 50 of us. That's enough. We can go get it done. That's fine. But you just destroyed somebody's property and you wasted somebody's tax dollars.
Yep.
And again, you're not going to get any sympathy from me if that's the way you want to act. You can do things two ways. And as a dad, I mean, I'm not a dad, but I've seen enough kids, and I was one once, and I probably still am one. If I want to get something, I have two methods that I can approach my parent or my authority figure. I can come nicely and ask for this thing and explain why this is important to me and why I want to have this done. Or I can just fall down in the aisle and kick and scream and stomp my feet and be mad because mom wouldn't buy the right kind of Cocoa Puffs for me, or I didn't eat the last box, but I want the toy that's in this box and she won't buy it. And now I'm just going to throw a fit.
Right.
Well, which one of these two things as a parent would you reward your child with? Obviously not the tantrum. And that's all we're seeing right now is a lot of people throwing tantrums and then getting away with it and reinforcing that notion. So, all right, before I lose track, we do have a super chat out there from Double A. Thank you for that. It says the media is pushing all this propaganda to be the norm that we're supposed to believe, not buying it. And he wants to say hi to you, Brother Yehuda. So that is from
Armin Axis.
That's the man over there in that Ohio territory. All right. I think that we are gonna kind of wrap things up. I don't have a whole lot other stuff. Actually, I do. I have one more thing I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I know that you were you had mentioned this earlier. You were asked to speak at this year's Gun Rights Policy Conference, which is now being held online, correct? It's not going to physically happen in Orlando like we had planned.
Yes.
But can you just tell me a little bit about your journey from being that kid that grew up in LA with no guns in the house and guns are bad to all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, I know it's been a journey, but today you are working on a speech to give at the online Gun Rights Policy Conference this year. So take us on that journey a little bit, not just in the gun ownership, but in the two-way, not only advocacy, but you've taken the step over to activist. So how has that happened?
Yeah, that was funny. My book had been out for about 3 months, and I had reached out to Alan Gottlieb, who is an amazing man, who runs, the Second Amendment Foundation, and reached out to him, emailed him a bunch of times, didn't hear back from him. And then the NRA had was it the NRA? No, I think it was the USCCA convention in Dallas. And I went there. It was like right before my Sabbath. I stopped in for like an hour or two. And I see Alan Gottlieb and his son, Andrew, who now is probably one of my closest friends. And they're sitting at the 2A, 2AF booth. And I was like, oh, Mr. Gottlieb. Like at that point, I had already done my research. I knew who he was. It was pretty cool to see like my first real gun celebrity, so to speak. And I walk up to him, I introduce him, and he goes, oh, you know what? I have your email. I have your book. Yes, I want to endorse it. I just have been so busy. I'll get you an endorsement. And we start chatting a little, and he's asking me about my background and how I got to write my book. And I tell him the whole story that I just told you. And then, I'm like, great. So I'll email you, on Monday. Fantastic. He's like, yeah. He goes, oh, by the way, do you want to speak at the GRPC? Again, I had been in the industry for like 3 months at this point. I hate at this point, very different, but 3.5 years ago, I hated public speaking. I was the guy behind the camera. You would never catch me in front of a camera ever. I mean, we're talking about ever. And he's like, oh, would you like to speak at the Gun Rights Policy Conference? And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, the Gun Rights Policy Conference, how big can that be, right? So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll speak there. And I said, oh, by the way, how many people do I usually attend the speeches? And I was expecting like 60, right? He goes, anywhere from 350 to 500. And I'm like, wait, what? And at that point, I already said yes. So I'm like, yeah, definitely, I'll do it. I gave him my card, and I gave his son my card. I'm like, we'll be in touch. And I'm walking away, and I'm just like, what the did I just do? And I'd never heard of it. I didn't even know what it was. Again, I didn't even know anyone in the industry at that point that I'm like, what did I just get myself into? So I come home and my wife was like, oh, how was it? And I'm like white as a ghost. And she's like, what's wrong? How was it? I'm like, I think I made a mistake. And I told her what happened. And, you know, I love my wife. She basically told me, well, she's like, yeah, well, you better start writing it because, you know, you kind of cowboyed up and you said you're going to do it, so you have to do it. And I'm like, can I just make an excuse? And she's like, nope. And I'm like, so, you know, by the time I gave my first speech, I'd already made, this was April, the speech was in September. I had already made connections in the industry, especially someone who immediately took me under their wing. And to this day, I joke that she's my 2A mom. Cheryl Todd has been, I absolutely love that woman more than life. I mean, she's literally, I call her my 2A mom. And, you know, I opened up and I wrote the speech, and the night before, I mean, I'm shaking. I don't sleep. The morning of, I'm in the bathroom for like 8 hours because like my stomach is killing me, nervous beyond anything. And I messaged Cheryl my opening line to this speech, and she said, yes, 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 you need to do it. And I get up to the podium. I can't feel anything. My whole body's numb. I am freaking out. And I open up with the line, while many of you don't know who I am, there's one person, and although they're not in the audience today, I need to thank for pushing me to get into Second Amendment advocacy. I said, that person, and again, I said, that person, again, who is not in the audience, is President Barack Obama. And the whole place burst out laughing and gave me a standing ovation.
That's awesome.
And I saw Cheryl in the front row right there. She just goes like this.
I can see her doing that.
I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. We're good. And, you know, I still at that point hadn't really got into advocacy yet. It kind of just morphed into it. Just, you know, I'm doing the podcast circuit, and I'm going through all these podcasts, and I'm meeting all these people. And I have a knack of saying, hi, my name is Yehuda. I write children's books. Put me on your podcast. And that's something I'm known for among a lot of our friends like Cheryl Todd and stuff like that. And I just go out and like, it can be the most terrifying big name on the face of the planet. You know, for Demolition Ranch, for example, I literally walked right up to him. And I was like, hey man, I love what you do. I write children's books on firearms safety, firearms education. I know you have kids. Here are my books. I mean, I just go up to anyone, and awesome. It took me a while to get to that point, but just over time, being on these podcasts, people were, you know, like I said, I'm a unicorn, right? The only Orthodox Jew in the 2A advocacy world, and people would just start asking me these, you know, what about this type of thing? Well, why are Jews anti-gun? And then all of a sudden, it just morphed into me becoming the Pew Pew Jew and just straight up being a 2A activist and ensuring that, you know, not only Jews have, thank you, Mr. Obama, not only that Jews can defend themselves, but just straight up being a defender of the Second Amendment. I mean, to the point where 2 years ago, 2018, the Second Amendment Foundation awarded me the Defender of Liberty Award after being in the industry for 1.5 years for everything that I've been doing with education and stuff like that. And it was a shocking honor because if you want to hear another quick funny story, they give out all the awards on Saturday, but I never go on Saturday because it's my Sabbath. So I get there Sunday morning, and Alan Gottlieb's son throws me a square this big. He goes, "Hey, this is for you." And I'm like, "What is it?" He goes, "Open it." And I open it, and here's this Defender of Liberty award. And I'm like, "Wait, what?" He goes, "Yeah, I got to go buy." And like, that was my whole fanfare of winning this big prestigious award. Like, no round of applause, no standing ovation. So yeah.
That's very cool. That's very cool. And I tell you what, there aren't very many better wings to be taken under than Cheryl and Danny Todd. I mean, just they're so awesome. Cheryl's been a guest on the podcast on numerous occasions, and I mean, all I've done as far as interacting with Cheryl is just like with you. I mean, some through Facebook and messaging and emails, and then some on the live podcast, and that's it. And yet, I mean, I feel like I already know, I know her. She's so down to earth. She's so real. She's who she is, no matter where she is. And that is exactly how I want to be. I mean, I don't want anybody to, okay, this may be a delusion of grandeur, but I mean, one day I want to maybe grow this podcast to where we've got more than, more than the 23 people we've got watching right now at one shot. But at the same time, if we do go big, I still want people who get, if I get a chance to meet some of the people that watch the podcast or listen to it, I want them to walk away saying he's exactly how I thought he'd be. I mean, he's not any different when the camera's not on than when the camera is on. And that's exactly, I mean, people like Cheryl, people like yourself. I mean, there's just so many people, even within our community. When I say our community, there used to be the website, gunchannels.com. And that is where Travis and I actually know each other through, and Ghost and Clover and those guys. We even went to Tulsa a few years back and got to meet those guys and several others at the Wanamaker Tulsa Arms Show, which is a cool thing. If you've anybody who's never been to Tulsa for the world's largest gun show, they have it twice a year, as long as there's no pandemic, and you should go check out, what is it? 11 acres under one roof, Travis, I think, something like that.
I don't know. There's something like 3,000 tables.
Yeah. It's almost 4,000 tables.
Yeah.
And 90% plus have got to be guns or gun parts. It's cool. But the reason that we went down there, I wanted to go to the gun show, but it's just a gun show. It's just big, but it's still just a gun show. But to get to hang out with so many people from the gun channels community and the YouTube community and meet these people that I'd been interacting with for, a year and a half, and get to shake hands with these people and meet them for real. I want to do that now. I want to go to the GRPC and shake your hand, shake Cheryl and Danny Todd's hand. All of the people that I, and the people that don't know who I am, that I want to get to know. So, I mean, I want to, even if this podcast never goes big, I just want to go meet everybody who is doing the same things that you're doing, and encourage all of you to please. I know it gets hard sometimes, and I know sometimes you wonder if your words ever get heard or if your words ever get read. And I mean, it's what you're doing makes a difference, and what you're doing, especially you unicorn, because it's making a difference in places that I'll never make a difference. You've got a target audience that I'll never reach. I mean, why should anybody in the Jewish community care what I have to say, other than, if they're already caring about things that are pro 2A, maybe.
Right.
But they're not. I'm not going to convince them to look into the Second Amendment, where you might, and I'm not going to reach children, even though I want this to be a podcast that can be played with children in the room. It's not for children. It's for mom and dad. I just don't want you to have to turn it off in the car, or turn it off because the little one walked in, or whatever is the case. But at the same time, this is not a kids program. This is for adults. And so you've got such a cool way of reaching people, and you're reaching people again that I'm never going to reach. And I can't even say that about my other panelists, because Defense Dad by the very nature of his channel, he's reaching out, well, not reaching out specifically, but he's making things, videos and things like that for other people in the same boat that he's in. I mean, Defense Dad wasn't always a gun person, a gun person per se. He's a car guy that's converted to a gun guy too. But being a dad, he wants to make sure that his kids are safe, and that he teaches his daughter that it's okay for her to be safe, and she has every right to protect herself when he's not around, and giving her the tools in order to protect herself. And that's very cool. Travis is an educator. Travis is a teacher. So you might reach kids, Travis, just because there may be kids that find out that you do this on the side. I know, again, you keep your private life private, but at the same time, I mean, it happens, especially where you just moved from a smaller community. It was no secret, and you've got your face out there. So there may be kids that learn about 2A advocacy from everybody on this panel except me. But you guys are cool, and I love the fact that our community and my ever expanding community, I guess I should say, we've got so many different people from so many different walks of life. Very few of us work in the gun industry or the Second Amendment industry, I guess, as a day job. Most of us have other things that we do, and making YouTube videos or Facebook posts is a hobby for us. And so to be able to turn what you love and what you believe in into a form of income and a way to make a living, I mean, that's no different than my dad. My dad grew up on a ranch. He still lives there. He's 72 years old and still ranching. He's never worked a day in his life except for when he was in the military. But aside from those 2 years, I mean, he does what he loves. He does his passion, and he makes money at his hobby. And what more could you ever ask for, right? So, I mean, the fact that people can do it gives me encouragement. But the fact that people are out there listening, you need that encouragement, whether you realize it or not. Everybody that's doing this needs to hear that every now and then. It's not just to stroke the ego. It's not just to not have to toot our own horn, to have somebody else toot that horn for us, but it really does help. That encouragement. I'm just saying, for everybody that's out here doing this, when you see these videos from or posts or what have you, the Instagram lives from Yehuda, drop those comments. Let him know. The thumbs up are great, but drop the comments. Just let him know that you appreciate what he's doing. Drop those comments on Defense Dad's videos, on Travis's videos, and just let these guys know that what they're doing is important to you, and it does make a difference, everybody. And if you want to do that for me, cool. If you don't, I'm still going to keep doing what I'm doing. But I mean, at the same time, we all need to help pull each other up at the same time, or lift each other up, right? So the 2A community and just gun owners in general, again, I've said this many times, is this community is so generous and so friendly and so welcoming. And I think that more and more people are realizing that all the time. Obviously, just looking at the number of guns bought recently. And every month we seem to set the bar higher, because every month breaks the previous month's record for NICS checks. So that's really encouraging. I know that by and large, what I see on the news clashes with what is reality in most of America. Most of America has not lost that sense of who Americans are, what America is, and where she needs to be. And that's encouraging to me. So it's kind of nice to know that this country, it seems like maybe we're going off the rails really fast, but I know as a rule, there are a lot of people who are unwilling to let it go off the rails. They're just not voicing their or making their voices heard yet. But those of us who do make our voices heard, it's nice to get that little bit of encouragement every now and then. So real quick, I've got one more question, a 2-part question for you, and then we're going to wrap things up. So of all the guns that you have, whether you own them or not, of all the guns that you have had the chance to actually shoot, What has been your favorite? That's part one.
HK MP5. It's my favorite gun of all time.
Oh man, I would love like a real one, like a select fire.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I've shot it full auto, no suppressed. I've shot it full auto suppressed. Man, I've shot every version of it, and
so cool.
it is a dream gun. I know I will never actually own an MP5, but I do plan as soon as it's available, really, and I can afford it. Without a doubt, I will be buying a SP5.
That's so cool.
It's my favorite gun of all time.
All right, and then second part, what is your dream gun? If money or availability were no object, or NFA were not in the way, your dream gun, you could own any gun. What would be at the top of that list? Because I would say shoot, but if you own it, you're gonna shoot it. So,
I mean, a full auto MP5.
okay, all right. There's no.
I was going to say the
no,
Cabot Arms Meteorite grip 1911s, you know, and
nah, it's still just a 1911, even though it's made from space.
made from space rock.
Here's the thing: have any of you guys shot a full auto MP5?
I've not shot a full auto anything.
Like in Call of Duty every night. I mean, I'm sure it's about the same. You know, I got the vibration coming through the controller. I reload fast. You know, tap rack.
I will tell you. Not only is the MP5 just accurate as hell. You shoot full auto and you don't even flinch.
Wow.
There is zero recoil, and it's just so much fun to shoot. And yeah, I've shot it so many times, full auto, and like I said, yeah, MP5 is fun in any configuration, but it definitely is my favorite gun of all time. And if money wasn't an issue, get rid of, like you said, all NFA. A suppressed full auto MP5 would be my dream gun.
All right, and then real quick, because like I said, sometimes I try to just catch people off guard and give you a question you hadn't prepared to think about. If you could choose between repealing the NFA or 50 state carry reciprocity, or 50 state constitutional carry, I should say, which would you choose, and why would it be repealing the NFA?
Because repealing the NFA gives us back our some of our freedoms, right? Natural reciprocity should all be states' rights. Those that, whether we like it or not, that should be states' rights.
Mm-hmm.
But the NFA will actually give us back some of our freedoms. So yes, it would be repealing the NFA. Wouldn't even be a hesitation.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. Well, we are going to let everybody kind of wind things down a little bit. One last time, if people are looking for you, where can they find you out there? The multitude of places where you can be reached, Yehuda.
Like you posted earlier, Facebook. Just please do not friend me if I don't know you, because you will never hear from me. So Facebook, Twitter. I do a Twitter every now and then. Not big on Twitter, because Twitter you really have to be quick on your feet and pretty brutal. Mm-hmm. And I just don't have it in me to be fighting with morons all day. But like I said, my main hub is Instagram. Follow me at the Pew Pew Jew. And I do a lot of Instagram, a lot of giveaways, a lot of fun stuff. You can win signed copies of my books. Like I said, I have technically 6 books out. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right. Defense Dad, anything you want to say to wrap things up for you? And then where can people find you?
Right now, you pretty much just find me on YouTube. But thanks for having me. I do have a video we shot today. I got to edit it. It's me and the daughter both shooting her gun, and before and after putting on better sights. So I'll have that up probably by tomorrow and check it out. But check everybody else's sights out on the panel tonight, and have a good night.
That's awesome. Thanks for being here, Travis. Any final thoughts, and then where can people find you?
Yeah, you just got me looking at full auto MP5s right now. So if somebody wants to loan me $47,500, I've found a couple of them for sale. But in the meantime, you can check me out on YouTube. The channel is Travis B11, and I've got all my other social media links in those videos in the description box. Otherwise, this has been great, man. It's been a lot of fun chatting. I appreciate the invite and being part of the panel tonight. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. All you guys.
Yeah, thanks for being here. All right, and we will go to the list while I have the list. This is just the YouTube stuff, but I do want to throw a couple shout outs out there from the Facebook side. We had a couple people drop by and like the post, or the live video post anyway. So thanks to Matt, Patricia, Travis, Blitz, and Steve for doing that. And then also, I don't know who was watching before I got my phone opened up and checked this out, but as far as watching the Facebook side, thanks to Nighthawk Medic, Dale, Patricia was watching, Brad was out there, Dwayne was out there. So thanks to all of you for doing that as well. And then on comments, just Patricia was the only one that left a comment so far that I've seen. Now on to the YouTube side. And again, remember, if you didn't leave comments on YouTube, we didn't even know you were here. So if you just wanted to watch anonymously, that's fine. You can do that, but we like it when you leave those comments so that we get to say hi to you and read your name off at the end of the night. So joining us tonight on the YouTubes, we had Iron Horseman, Mystic Guns, Justin Gibbons, Mike, Defense Dad, Fluffy 10mm Jeep Guy, Nighthawk Medic, G23, 2 Live Moo, Riding Shotgun with Charlie, Yehuda Remer. I'm not sure who that guy is, but he's new to the chat. Welcome, Yehuda Remer, to the chat. Gun Loving Grandpa, Patriot in the Dark, Kingpin, Guitar Man Pete, SS Pawn, Georgia Trucker 69, the 402 Outdoorsman, Jay Brown, Blue Steel 44, JB Hickok, Tim Foley, Carolina EDC Reviews, The Poor Conservative, Travis T, which is other Travis, Calaveras 32 Special, SCH Studios. Welcome, Stacy. I don't think I've seen you out there in the live chat, so glad to have you along. Schofield 63, Agorizer, 9mm, 7 Wonders, Midnight Range TM, which is other Travis, just the one other. Armament and Axes, Obnoxious One, and Ghost Tactical did make it in right before the buzzer. So thank you, all of you, very much for watching all of that. You heard where you can find everybody, and then you can reach out to Sandhills Sweetheart on Facebook, or you can email her at nebraskasandhillssweetheart@gmail.com. If you want to reach out specifically to her, you can find me on Facebook.com/SandhillsShooter, or right here on YouTube.com/SandhillsShooter as well. You can also email me during these live broadcasts at sandhillslive@gmail.com, or catch me anytime on email at sandhillsshooter@gmail.com. So thanks all of you for joining us. Again, I know I say this every time, but it is 110% true. Without all of you out there watching and listening, there's no reason for us to do this. We could just make a phone call and talk to each other, because that's all we'd get done. So thank you, all of you, for hitting that thumbs up button, for sharing the link to this. Please don't stop sharing it. Get this out in front of everybody. Let's get some more love out there for Yehuda and what he's doing, and bring some more exposure to his advocacy as well, because like I said, Yehuda's reaching people that I'll never reach with this podcast. Before I go, we do have one more super chat from AA. Peace to all, #2A strong. Thank you for that, AA. So on behalf of Defense Dad and Travis P11, on behalf of Sandhills Sweetheart and myself, and especially on behalf of Yehuda Remer, the Pew Pew Jew, thank you, all of you, for being here. We love you. God bless you. It's time for you to get off my lawn. Hey, I got the cool t-shirt from Millspin. Millspin.com sells these. They don't make it for me, but you can get a cool Get Off My Lawn shirt with a Gadsden snake on it from Millspin. So go check those guys out as well. All right, later.